Yes, great. Okay, so good evening, class. Right. So we are going to be looking at how we go about building the creative business plan. How many of us ever had the experience of doing a business plan? By show of hands, anyone? Any
Real
part?
small scale for an
Mm-hmm.
SBA for POB.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, the same thing for me.
A major business plan? I'm getting that dark screen again.
If I have to
Right.
put
So
on my mic to talk, I have to get it back to the screen. Let me see if I can figure out how to make it smaller so it's not in the way. Uh, all right, let's yeah, man, yeah, man. There we go.
right. Okay. So the thing is, when you two would have done the business plan, what did you remember about that? Why were you told that you had to do it? Do you recall?
To figure out
Nobody.
if the business makes sense and so that you have a direction that you're going in.
And Joshua, you remember that was so long ago. You say it was for an SBA, but
Yeah.
did you remember anything about the process?
Um, Not fully.
Okay, no problem. And
I
the
can't.
others have never done business plan. Well, I'll tell you this, class. We've all engaged in it in some form or fashion, you know. The question is whether or not we've done it such that it's something that we could submit to a bank or to a potential business partner or to an investor or to a sponsor is another story. But we've all engaged in business planning in some kind of way. Every month, when we have to put our homes in order after we have received our income in whatever form or fashion that may be, we engage in business planning because there has to be a determination of what resources we need for the month and therefore what we're going to spend on based on what we already and we also and in doing that that is normally nexus or linked to having particular needs and having a particular intent. Sometimes we have major goals and sometimes we have minor operational ones. A major one in a household would be if it is we have to do something to the vehicle or we're going to expand our home or purchase something major or a trip to be planned for the family. And operational would be, for example, paying the monthly bills, going to the grocery, and so on and so forth. And the point is that for every one of those decisions or those goals that are to be achieved, there are certain resources that have to go with it. Not so?
Yep.
So therefore we tend to have this kind of mental map in our or within us as to how we will go about doing that and successfully so because we balance because we don't want to go and spend too far on one area and then we are without particular critical resources such as electricity, water, and now of course internet now has become a critical resource or input to the home because if we don't have that, most of us here are teachers, educators, we can't teach, and of course we can't communicate because this is how we are all communicating with each other now for the most part. Agreed. So for the business, it is very much a similar thing. The creative business plan is the word creative is there because we recognize that when it comes to creative enterprises and creative business ideas, they require something a little different to if we had to be building a business plan for a company that deals with nails, for example, or plastic bags, for example, and even particular services in the health sector, for example. So that putting creative in front of that is that what we're learning here, we are learning with the idea that we are doing the analysis fully cognizant of the unique or the nuances that pertain within the creative and cultural industries environment, or like I like to say, the creative industry ecosystem. So first of all, let us have a clear sense of what is a business plan before we get into what is entailed in there. Um, I will speak a little bit about the elements as well, as you would imagine. So what is a business plan? So it's a formal document. So the example that we just gave there, using our household as an example, what, as I say, is engaging in business planning. But for the purposes of what we are doing here, a business plan is actually a formal document, and it is considered formal because this is the document that normally goes in to financial institutions or other enterprises where they may be interested in doing business with you. And the doing of the business may be that it is focused on the business in entirety, or as this class is asking of you, that it is focused on a particular project idea or business idea. But it's a formal document that details how the business, and usually it's a startup, and we know that that is what we're looking at here. We're looking at startups in the case of something totally new, um, either that you've not done it before or that you may have been working on it, but this is the first opportunity to really plan it out depending on what stage it's at, using one of those three documents that as you are about to graduate from ACAM, that this thing can actually take off, can become a full reality. So it's usually this formal document that defines the vision and the intent for the startup. And of course, most importantly, how we will go about achieving this. And because the plan is very much interested or inclined towards clearly articulating how you will go about achieving this vision and intent, it is focused on outlining the marketing, financial, and operational strategies that you will be using to achieve those goals. And so when you look into the business plan document, what one would see in the first instance is some strategic assessment, and then following from there, you see marketing, financial, and operational strategies sections in the document. Okay, everybody understands that so far? I I like to consider it great. I like to consider it as something, a sort of a roadmap, that it lays out what you're going to be doing for the next 2 or 3 years. And so a business plan is also time bound. A feasibility plan is too, to some degree, but that is not emphasized because when one thinks of the very nature of the feasibility plan, the assumption is that you are doing the scoping work because this is something that you are proposing to do within a particular time frame. And usually somewhere written there in that feasibility plan, you would indicate in the introduction or the executive summary is that this scoping exercise is being done with the proposed interest of starting on X date or Y date. In the case of the business plan now, it is a scenario where you would be doing all of this assessment and laying out all these plans in the document with a particular time frame in mind. You may have seen where persons would have business plans that go up to 5 years. In the creative and cultural industries ecosystem, 5 years is considered too long. Why do you think that, class? Why do you think having a 5 year business plan is not necessarily applicable for the creative and cultural industries?
Because we attempt to change every carnival.
Oh Lord, look where he gone. What can one deduce from that, class?
I
How Jaron has just put that?
I actually think it's because the way arts and culture is created and consumed, it's not as mechanical as a regular business.
That is one
Sometimes
of the
there is a
reasons.
lot. Huh?
That is part of it. But what is the thing that makes it just as you have described it? Why is it that one would characterize it in the way that Janelle has. What about it that makes it not as mechanical as she has put it? Can anybody give a suggestion? Or
Because
yes?
it's defined by inspiration and creativity, so it can change at any moment, and so is the audience.
Well, that is it. The latter part is really it, even though that part about inspiration, that's one of the factors. But it ultimately is the latter part of Jaron's explanation, which is that it's mechanical as Janelle has explained it, because of the fact that it can change at a moment's notice. Arts and cultural commodities tend to be they operate in a very dynamic environment, and because they're tied to people's lifestyle and their whims and fancies, things can change very quickly. It's because it's consumptive, and consumptive in a way where sometimes it's a one-off, sometimes people don't want the one-off after a particular point in time, or they may only want it once. And a very good example of that is in music when you hear people talk about a one hit wonder. Have you ever heard of that term? One hit wonder? Joshua, tell your colleagues what is a one hit
Yeah.
wonder.
They know what it is, but this artist put out one song, never hear about them ever again. But that one song, real mashup,
Real hit.
and it
I
lasted
want to
like
say
years.
that I want to
To give
challenge
an
that, Joshua.
example.
Uh-huh.
I am not going to ask you all to give any examples. We're being recorded, but you just take for a moment and put in your mind a one hit wonder, because we
But I
have.
want to challenge it, Dr.
You will
Toll,
challenge it.
Sure, go ahead.
because I
Good.
agree that sometimes you just have one hit, but it's not because they only put out one song. Sometimes they have artists that put out like albums and albums of songs, and they only have one hit, and they still consider a one hit wonder, even though they have a huge library of work, a
No,
catalog.
I
No, but
agree. No,
but
I
Serge,
agree that we weren't saying that is one hit. We call it a
It's
one
just
hit wonder
it's just one
because
hit that
it's
gets picked
one
up by the
hit they get
masses.
out of all or whatever they've
Yeah.
ever had. Yeah, you never hear
but
about them
Serge,
after
look at
that.
that in your timing, girl. That was one hit one. That was one song they put out ever, and it was big in that
Who
time. And
search?
that was it.
All,
Yeah.
all they just
Girl,
really
search have
call
about seven
somebody
other
name.
songs.
She said don't call name and record it.
After I just beg all they don't call nobody name, or they still go on and call up the people name. Suppose they consider themselves to be a two-hit wonder or seven-hit
No,
wonder.
but they have seven, at least seven songs. So that's what I'm saying, is that it's not just that they have one song, it's one song
But
hit.
it's one that
And
people know
Guys, I
about
gotta
it.
go.
to
I
hear
gotta
more.
go. So,
That is the point. Okay, all
Bye, all. I'm out.
So, so the point is that that business plan there is to lay out that roadmap. So, what is the purpose of the business plan in greater specificity? Well, you use that plan to attract investors, and you use it as a way to introduce yourself as well, because you may not have a track record already. And of course, we know this with the startup. So that when you lay out the details in the business plan, this is what then catches the investor or the panel's attention. Because the fact of the matter is, you knew, okay, it might be a good idea, a good creative idea, but what makes it a sound or a good creative business idea is when it is articulated well in the business plan, that they can see clearly that the marketing that you plan to put behind it, that makes sense. The financials that you put there, that makes sense to go with that. The operational structure that you're laying out, that makes sense. And then lastly, but most importantly, the strategy that you are articulating to put all of that together, that also makes sense. It is also a good way for companies and creative enterprises to keep themselves on target going forward. So the idea is that the business plan is what the creative enterprise, regardless of its size, they look back at to ensure that they are staying on track. And of course, by extension, it is the way in which you can do a review, because it's important as time goes on that you evaluate where you're at, if you're on the right track, if based on what has been articulated in the business plan, you are achieving what you set out to. And therefore, if you are not, it gives you the opportunity to take a step back and try then to correct where you may be going wrong. The business plan is for that purpose. And so therefore, class, perhaps you can appreciate why is it that a business plan tends to have a strategic plan in a sense within it, a mini strategic plan. Jaron, we agree again, right? Because within the business plan, you would want to have an idea in a summarized way. What is the strategy that is going with that? Same thing where marketing is concerned. You will have the basic outline of the marketing strategy. And as you all are learning with Ms. Brooks right now, within that you will have your digital marketing strategy, because that is what is most important at this time, right? How does that differ from the feasibility study, you may ask? That differs from the feasibility study in the sense that if you look at what we would have examined last week of the feasibility study is asking us to explore the potential of something in terms of, for want of a better way of saying it, the thing itself. It's like if you had an orange and you had to take it and peel and examine the skin and then examine the wedges, then look at a particular wedge and go in. And that is why within the feasibility study, we talk about technical feasibility, financial feasibility, operational feasibility, and so on and so forth. The business plan has the assumption that you have done some kind of feasibility assessment, and therefore you are at the stage where you can clearly articulate how this idea, whether it's a project idea or business idea as being part of an enterprise, is a winner, and therefore how you plan to ensure that this winner is sustainable. Does everybody understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. So that it can also be used to map out a new direction or a new product and service, because the business could be existing, but then within there now there's something new we want to go into. So like Hillary's idea, if it is that this business existing already and now this is a direction we're going into, then we can have a business plan to map that out in its entirety. Nivedita, you doing a business plan? Are you?
Yes.
Right. Similar thing, right? We know already this could work. I mean, so therefore, to do a feasibility in this instance, not really necessary, but one can sit down now and map out in detail now how this thing will happen. And we already realize that we have competitors in the market. So, okay, so how are we going to ensure that this is sustainable as part of this new product that seems to be emerging now on the market for music education, particularly at the CSEC and CAPE levels? You see? Right. I feel as if I have lost control. Can you scroll it up for me? All right. It kind of moves slow. Okay, that's not supposed to be there. Like it's showing things that are not supposed to be there. All right. We're gonna skip that slide for now. I thought I had deleted that. I think that's where my thing went baduk last night. Right. Good business plans should include, though, for sure, an executive summary, discussion of the products and services, marketing strategy and analysis, financial planning, and a budget. Because of what we just said is the purpose of the business plan, regardless of all of the other things that you may have there that will be there according to whatever is the focus of your business plan for sure should have these elements that are identified here. Now, let me say here at this juncture that you will also receive an outline, a breakdown I suppose in a sense you could say a template for each one of these plans, and depending of course on the one that you're choosing, that is what you're expected to follow. So whilst this is the lecture to teach you about this, you will be receiving a template that you will be following as you are developing your document. And of course, that will be for next semester, but I will be giving it towards the end of the semester that you will have that clarity. When we get past proposal, you will receive that for each one. But just for this moment that you have an understanding of what is entailed in this exercise, these are some of the important elements. There are other important elements, but what we are saying is that if the business plan don't have this in the real world scenario, they may not take you on. You get that, class? That is what this slide is saying.
Dr.
So
Tollett, sorry, excuse, will we all get access to the template, or will it just be for those who are doing business plans?
hello. Did you all not pay to come into this program? Or
Okay.
all you hear free on somebody bidding? But
Just
but that's but that's like you buy a top and a top and a bottom, and they tell you a set, and they tell you have to pay for the top and pay for the bottom separate. No, no, you get all.
okay.
When you graduate and you need to do a strategic marketing plan, what happens then? You have to call who doing a strategic marketing plan here? You would have to call one of your colleagues to get that. No,
Come and
they
do
will.
the whole course over again.
Oh gosh, well, boy, I really am a smart woman if I do that. Cause them a program definitely making money. No, 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 no. You get everything. You will have it. You will have all of those things, as well as all the resources that will be put up there. I'm developing some little what I call toolkits, and you will have all of the worksheets, regardless of whichever one you're pursuing. So yeah, they'll be there. Don't worry.
Thank you.
So the reason why I emphasize this is because of the fact that I have sitting on various evaluation panels sometimes. Sometimes people take, for example, let's take executive summary, for example. Do we all know what is an executive summary? Do
It's
we?
basically the summary of what the whole presentation is about in like the shortest possible way.
Right. And sometimes, well, we know this is something that is written last, but it is put to the front of the document. And we're human. Sometimes we end up with scenarios where we're running out of time. We coming down to the wire with whatever is the deadline, the hour or clock, as we like to say, and the date as to when this thing is to be submitted. And we have everything else inside of it. And we say, look, we ain't bothering with that. At least we get the document done. But do you know that if you don't have the executive summary, they ain't watching your thing? Why do you think that is? Why is it that if you don't have
Ain't
an
nobody got time to check through things that they might not be interested in, so they just want to get to know if
that's
they're
right.
even interested in it to begin with.
That's right. That's right. That executive summary is the thing that introduces your business idea or your project idea to whoever's reading it. That's right. So if it's not there, you gone through. Forget that. They ain't watching at you. And if it's one where, however, it's set up, they're required to look at them all, and you are still able to secure that meeting, them ain't really taking you on, you know. Worse yet, if you're not good at selling your thing, you're in trouble, because if you're not able to sell it and they have the executive summary, that is pressure for you, right? So you must have these things. Look at this one. Take one more example: financial planning and a budget. Most people will do this one, the budget, not so? What does budget mean for you all? Well, you've done Miss Joseph's class now. So when they say budget, what should the budget reflect? What should be in the budget?
Your expenses.
Plenty things.
Sorry. So
Mm-hmm.
so
I
yes,
hear.
you have your expenses. You have whatever is going to be bringing in your revenue,
Right,
as well.
right. Excellent. Correct. But we know that in the Caribbean sense, when they say budget, what do they usually put down only?
Profit and
How you're spending the money.
Money.
How you're spending the money. Thank you, Janelle. Exactly. Right? So that's one faux pas already. But let's just say we do it the correct way, as Psyche has just said. Right? How is that different from financial planning? Based on what you all have learned with Miss Josie. When they say financial planning here, what else is expected to be seen in the business plan besides the budget? Anyone? Just one example.
Investments going forward,
Mm-hmm.
and
What's
things like
another basic one?
I'm trying to say depreciation, but I don't know.
Yes,
Yeah.
possibly. If there's equipment and stuff like that. What else?
Assets, your assets
That
that you would have too as well. Whatever
Mm-hmm.
personal investment capital
Mm-hmm.
that you're going to be investing to as well, because at least from the class you would have had with Nicole, should have emphasized if other investors like to know what investment the startups are also making to their own business idea um,
Right.
too as well.
Right.
So
Yes.
that's part of it too as well.
Yes. Yes. Indeed. And even things like your cash flow analysis. Right? What is that? And at what point in time do you think you'll make your first profit? And what do you think might cause you? How long do you think you can go without making a profit and these kinds of things? So therefore, to have a budget only, and I have seen business plans like that without financial planning, once more you're doing yourself a disservice. Does everybody understand that, class?
Yes,
Yes.
Miss.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
yes, ma'am.
Great. So what are some of the key elements of that business plan? Well, I would say, and I think I've identified the one or two there. I've talked about the executive summary. We've talked about the discussion of the products and services, market analysis, market strategy, general strategy should also be inside of there. We've talked about financial planning. We've mentioned budget just now. But other important considerations that should be there are things such as your operational plan. And when we talk about operational plan now, we're talking about how the project is going to be run. So and that has to do, for example, with your human resource, right? What kind of staff are you having? Is it full-time, part-time? Is it some voluntary interns? How many? Where are you locating the business? Is it online? Does it have a physical? And if it's a physical, what is your location? And of course, most importantly, justification for the choices that you're making with regard to these operational decisions, why you are choosing what you are choosing to do, where that operational plan is concerned. Everybody understands that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yep.
Question, Otto.
Yeah.
So
Yes. Go
where
ahead.
you insert the operational plan when you present this package?
This comes towards the end of the document. What usually happens is that, as I will show you shortly, because I'm going to discuss the key elements now shortly, and I will have them placed in a particular order. But somewhere after you have discussed marketing, you would then have a discussion of operational, then financial, and then you will have a summary of the strategy in terms of the broad strategy, then what we like to call the strategic action steps, and then even costs, what may be the cost appended to it. So then you may have another round of financials that now cost out the strategy you have inside of the business plan, because that strategy now and the action steps that you have there would, of course, be directed at this particular product or service that you're trying to launch, or this new direction that you would have the company going into. Everybody understands that? Yes. Right. Great. Awesome.
Excuse
Okay.
Dr. Tall, I don't know if this was said
Yes.
or I probably just can't remember, but in the
Mm-hmm.
feasibility plan,
Mm-hmm.
is there a budget? Like, is there some sort of financial statement at all about the feasibility plan?
Yes. Yes, there was financial feasibility. Look back at your notes and you'll see it there. It's technical
Okay.
feasibility, financial feasibility, operational feasibility, and I believe there's another one. I don't
I have
remember the
technical
term.
and and
Marketing
commercial.
feasibility.
Marketing. I know I was forgetting one. Yeah, must have all of them must have financials. That's why Miss Joseph course is so important.
Okay.
Must discuss the dollars and cents.
I didn't know
I,
that
I don't know
that
if
one.
you see in the slide clearly because of course. Oh, okay, okay. Come on, don't do me that. Right? So I just tried to summarize what are the elements that you see in the business plan here on my little blackboard here that I created. Um, you see an executive summary there again, not so? And as I said before, that's placed at the front of the document after table of contents and all that, or actually that's placed first and then the table of contents. But it's written last because it is a summary of what is contained in the document. And as we say, it's very important because that's what they look at. It's like your introduction to the whole thing, right? From there, you go into background, mission statement, but it's not, this just has mission, but you in this area here between background and mission statement, we discuss not just the mission, we also discuss the vision and values, and that's one of the worksheets that I'll be giving you all to work on for next week. That's one of the worksheets, looking, trying to construct vision, and it's actually they're strategy games. Hopefully you'll enjoy them, right? So you will be able to develop your vision, your values, and maybe your mission. I will be glad if you're able to achieve that as well. So those are inside of there. I don't see them. They have not identified in here as well, but I like to separate out strategy in terms of what I call strategic intent. So that is your goals, objectives, um, and overarching intent. So there's that inside of there, following from the vision, mission, and values. And then from there, you're getting to your analyses, and that normally culminates with a SWOT analysis before then going into the various plans that you see articulated here. So you see competitor, this ain't computer analysis. That's supposed to be competitor. That's a typo. So what you see here is supposed to be competitor analysis. So competitor analysis, SWOT analysis, and then it goes into the various plans before you have a description then of the product and operations and then timeline in terms of rollout. So what this tries to do, class, is give you a general idea, in a visual of what the business plan, the elements that make up that business plan. And as I said to you, you will be receiving a template which will put it in order and give you the details of what each element, what you are required to do under each element in terms of analysis. And as we will continue to discuss here in the lecture, you will see where I articulate a bit on each of these as we go on. Any questions or comments? Okay. Let me see if I can get it moved again. So just as I was saying there, so the first thing that you tend to treat with after you do an introduction and background is to articulate the vision, mission, and values. And that's the order in which it comes: vision, mission, values, VMV. Some people have MVV, but I always believe that vision comes first because that's the outlook on the business. And what a vision is the way in which you arrive at articulating your vision is to say in 10 years from now, where do you see that particular product, service, or business? So if you see yourself to be the leading knowledge entrepreneur, knowledgepreneur in the field of music education, that is a vision. If you see yourself to be the storehouse, or the storehouse for the retention and documentation of indigenous music songs for the English speaking Caribbean, then so be it. That is what you are, right? So that the vision is arrived at asking yourself, where do I see myself 10 years from now? And that is supposed to inform your mission and your values. Now, values, people sometimes are able to arrive at quite naturally. They write down a few things, but I have a strategy game for that, where I use the word entrepreneurship. And you will learn more about that when I post it up for you. And out of that, to my mind, if we are in the business of creative entrepreneurship or being a creative entrepreneur, that should help us to arrive at some key words that we see to represent value for us in our business. Once we have vision and we have our values, our core values as we call it, and we know what our product is, we should be able then to craft our mission statement. That is really how it should be done. Does everybody understand that? And we are recording, so we can always go back at it. And so on this slide, I try to give a little blurb on what each one is that would allow you then, as you are crafting, you can always look back at it to help you be sure that you are formulating it correctly. But I will be giving you worksheets to help you to craft these things. Everybody's clear on that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let me see if I can. From there is where you start to get in then to the external analysis. That is, so that once you have laid that out now, the business plan carries you into your strategic assessment. The way in which the business plan works is that the the document is supposed to show to whoever is reading it that you are aware of the environment in which the business idea or the project idea has to operate in, and you are aware of your company in terms of its position within that environment, and aware of your company in terms of its competences and capabilities. Does everybody understand what I've just said there? Take a moment, think about it, and tell me if you understand what I just said there. And if you need me to repeat, I'll be happy to do that.
Can you repeat, please?
Sure. So I'm saying to you, once you have laid out that background context that we just went through just now, in terms of giving a little introduction and company background and laying out the vision, mission, and values, you start your first component of analysis in the business plan, which is the strategic analysis or the strategic assessment. And the purpose of that strategic assessment is to be able to show to the reader of the document that you are aware of the environment in which the creative enterprise is operating in, right? As well as you have an intrinsic understanding as well of the position of your creative enterprise and or the particular product or service that you are seeking to launch within that environment, as well as your competencies and capabilities for positioning that product or service or that enterprise in that particular environment. Everybody understands that now?
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So strategic assessment is about analyzing on one hand the external environment to understand the nature of that external environment and what is entailed in that external environment, to understand where the business or the product or service is located within that, to understand the competencies and the capabilities of you and your team and the potential of the strength then and the weaknesses of your product or service, and pull that together to arrive at some kind of to help guide then what would be the marketing response and the financials and the operational structures that you should set up to then identify. Yes.
Is that a typographical error? Is internal in the place where macro is supposed to be and macro in where internal is supposed to be in the diagram?
No, that's correct. I'll come to that shortly.
Okay. Cool.
When you say typo, oh, you mean, oh, how you mean in terms of how it
like
is?
An error.
Yes, how it
Yeah.
is. Yes.
Like
I'll
in
change it around.
employee capital. Okay, yeah. All right, cool. Just make it.
I feel, so I wouldn't put up the sliders yet. I will try and change these things. I feel as I was moving around quickly, it might have switched around on me. Because I used this quickly because I didn't have PowerPoint on it to finish build out the slides. Yes, that's correct. Here is supposed to be the macro, right? And this will be your micro here, which is correct. And then the internal would be here. Right? So I will edit it and put it back in. Right? So that point I was making there about the strategic analysis then first begins then with what we call the environmental scan. And that environmental scan is focused on the macro and micro environmental analysis, right? The macro environment, which is really supposed to be this, is the bigger picture or the wider landscape in which your creative enterprise or your project would be operating in. So we could consider, for example, the creative industry or the creative economy of Trinidad and Tobago, your macro, or the Caribbean creative economy, or the global creative economy. Right? Depending on your focus, you will determine which one of those best suits your macro. Your micro environment now is the immediate environment. So most times, for the purposes of what we do in ACAM, we like to say that the macro environment is the Caribbean creative and cultural ecosystem, or the Caribbean creative and cultural economy, and the global economy, right? And therefore, Trinidad and Tobago then we see as your microenvironment if you're based there, and that is your immediate market from which you are feeding off. Everybody understands that?
Yeah.
Yeah. What does intermediaries mean?
What does what? Intermediaries mean? Well,
Yeah. What?
it's like it could be somebody who's not a supplier. You might have somebody who's a middleman for you then. That's the term that we use in the Caribbean. So you might have a product that you're selling, and you may have someone else who also sells on your behalf, like a kind of agent.
Okay. Like if you have a product and you put it in a store, you mean? Like if you
Yes,
also sell
it
to the
could be an
store, then you put it
intermediary
in a
for
store.
you. Yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay, okay.
Or
Yeah,
let's
that.
say let's go with the theater world. You produce a play, and you show the play in one place, but then you decide that you can also run the play in Barbados. Whoever you allow to do that, that would be an intermediary. You understand? Where's Janelle? Did I lose Janelle there? I think I might have lost Janelle. Was it not Janelle who was speaking just now?
No, but she's here still. Yes, it was Janelle speaking just now. Probably
Yes,
something went wrong with his system or something.
yes. Janelle, you heard me
Am I
just now?
bumped off?
I feel you did.
I
I
I
w-
I thought I was bumped off. I wasn't hearing anything just now. I don't know if it was just me alone.
right. Did you hear the example I gave of theater or no?
I heard you say something about theater being in Trinidad and then I went to Barbados and then I didn't hear anything until you
So,
just said it.
right. So I was saying an example of that from the theater world is if you would produce a play, you run it here, yes, right? But then you have opportunity for someone in Barbados to also showcase it. They would be like an
Yeah,
intermediary for you.
like a producer. Okay.
Yeah, you see?
Yeah.
Yeah, so intermediaries, middlemen, so to speak. So
Yeah.
we will fix up this slide and make sure that is correct before we put it up and I send it out to you all. But this is the first level of analysis that we do, that macro. And the analytical tool that we use for that, I hope I don't have any problems with that one now. Okay, that looking kind of okay, right? Is what we call a pestle analysis. Yes, we have one little error here, right? And what we mean by a pestle analysis is that there are these factors that operate in the macro environment that we have no control over that can impact on our business. And because we have no control over them, it is important that we identify them. Not only that we identify them, that we are aware of them and what they can do to our business, but we can determine one, whether there are positive or negative impacts. And if there are positive impacts, we see them as opportunities. And if there are negative impacts, we see them as challenges. But also that in mapping them out, we are able then to identify, to craft strategies to respond to them. Okay, and of course, that aspect happens later on down in the business plan. But at this stage, remember, we're doing our strategic analysis or strategic assessment. So we will do what we call a pestle analysis. So it is whatever political or legal factors, what are the political factors that can impact upon us? I'm going to change all these paragraphs. What are the economic? What are the socio-cultural? Legal should be separate. Um, Demographic normally goes with socio-cultural. What are the technological? And in the case of persons who may be in the business of cultural experiences, they would also be environmental, because we know that festivals and cultural experiences can be directly impacted on by the environment. So right now, for example, COVID-19 is one such example. Years ago, before that, 9/11, if you all remember, was another one. People were afraid to travel, and so some festivals in some parts of the world, people weren't traveling, but West Indians were, because they were of the view that 9/11 is not affecting them, because, of course, it was the whole conflict between ISIS of the Islamic world and the US. So one can see how certain factors that are operating in our natural environment can also negatively impact or positively impact upon what we are doing in our business. And as I'm saying to you before, we need to know what they are to not only be able to determine whether they are positive or negative impacts, but also that we will know what kind of strategic response we can craft to ensure that our project idea or business idea can still be a sustainable reality, can still be viable in spite of what may be going on out there in that environment. Any questions about that? Okay. We would also need to assess that immediate or that micro environment, which is still external to us, but it's the one that is closest to us, and you will see it referred to also as the operating environment. And we do that by using Porter's 5 forces analysis, where he argues that there are these threats out there, that these competitive threats that can affect how well we do. And I am going to give you a worksheet on this, but it is Porter's 5 forces assessment is important to feasibility study for all three. And remember, I said that I will give a lecture where I look at some of these tools in particular. So we will come back and meet Porter, and we will do it in the form of a worksheet. By that time, we will be a little more comfortable with the project ideas and business ideas that we are working on, right? But I've just placed it here that you would see where it fits into the overall business plan and where it follows on from and why. So this is what we can use as a summary analytical tool to help us to analyze that immediate external environment or micro environment or operating environment. Everybody understands that? Is everybody still here with me?
Yes, miss.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. Right. So from the external, we also have to analyze ourselves. Ourselves, us being the creative, what we are focused on. Not ourselves as the creative entrepreneur now. So I'm not asking you to do a self-assessment of your being, but rather now in terms of the creative product or service, the commodity that you are looking to launch or the business itself. And we do that by way of conducting what we call a resource audit. And the resource audit is basically an analytical tool to determine what resources you have at your disposal to ensure that this project idea or business idea can take off and can be viable, can be winnable and bankable. And when they talk about resources at your disposal, we are talking about whether or not you own it outright or you have access to it. That is usually mapped out in one column. But we are also interested to know that you can analyze and recognize what you don't have. Why is the resource as audit important to do, class? Why would that be an important exercise to engage in? Based on what I've just said, it is there.
Because it might determine at what level your startup will be.
And when you say that, what you mean? For the benefit, I kind of get what you're saying, but when you say it like that, what you mean exactly, Nivedita?
Whether you're starting on a small scale or medium or large, but depending on how much resources you have accessible to you and
Right,
affordable to you.
right. That is one. That's a very good one. Why else? What's another reason?
A resource audit might also help you to know what you still need to get that you may not have factored in. So when you do that resource audit, you're able to see that, okay, I'm missing this particular thing, it's critical. So it can help you flesh out the items that you have and what you may still need to get that you would not have foreseen if you did not do an audit of your resources.
Awesome. And what does that connect to? What other aspect of the business plan that would critically connect to?
The financial
Feasibility
planning.
study.
The financial.
Okay.
Yes, the financial. Right? The financials, because based on who was talking there just now, that was Jeremy.
Yeah.
Right. Based on what Jeremy just said there, it would be the financials, because through the resource audit now, this is how you would ensure that you don't go and just throw down numbers there. You see? And that is what would get you out of hot water with the investors. Because I'll tell you this, most times it's the financials that would lick up a project. It sounded real good till you get to those numbers. When those numbers start to crunch, that is when you see the problems. And that is often when the person, the entrepreneur, did not take the time to do a thorough resource audit. Because for everything put in the resource audit, a value can be placed to it. It is either going to be a revenue source or an asset, right? Or it is going to be an expense. And because of what we say, we need to do not only in terms of our budget, but in terms of our financial planning, the resource audit then becomes very crucial for that in helping us to map out those dollars and cents in a more realistic and a more accurate way. Everybody gets that? Right. And these are the categories of resources. You will also receive a template that will help you to map that out as well, a worksheet as well. And when you lay it out like that, you can even put it in your document like that. Of course, I will be indicating to you of those worksheets which ones could be used for some of the other plans. But they're being discussed there because they are very critical to this particular document. As we go on, I will expose you to which ones will be relevant for the feasibility plan, and which ones will be of use to the marketing plan. But these are what are part and parcel of the business plan framework. Right. When you have conducted your environmental and your internal assessment from the resource audit, it is also important to visualize your company's weak points. And this is something recently come up in business practice called the pirate funnel. And it's really an acronym, like how in the cartoons they are, "Arr!" I don't know why they arrived at that, but that is what they did. And I suppose that's really where pirate come from, the noise that they say the pirates make. And the idea is that you should be able to determine your awareness, acquisition, activation, retention, referral, and revenue in relation to your product service and your clientele. The University of West Indies actually has used this to some degree in terms of arriving at what it calls its triple A strategy: alignment, access, and awareness. So it's very useful in the sense that it helps you to figure out where you sit in relation to this criteria and have that awareness of where you may have gaps. And I suppose, in a sense, when you think about it, this funnel could also help you to determine for sure, in line of what Nivedita said before the resource audit, help you determine for sure how big you can go with your business idea. Because once you go through this and you answer these questions here at the side, it will help you to know what is the positioning of your business idea or your project idea. Where can this take off from and how big you can go? It will also help you to determine what is your value proposition for your business. Does everybody understand that? And from there, you can then now develop your SWOT analysis, because you will have everything you need now based on the two types of analysis. On the one hand, your external analysis, and on the other hand, your internal analysis, to then now create your SWOT analysis. And we use that to summarize your competitive position. Once one can summarize one's competitive position, you can then now get into your marketing assessment and map out your marketing. And this is where your P's come in. Of course, now class, I am not going to spend any time on this because you're doing an entire course on this. And so this is why after we do what we do next week, then Miss Brooks will come in, because it is also that she will touch a little bit on what would fit here. And for those of us who are doing this business plan, I would say that apart from what I have articulated here and what will be in the template, all you would really need within this document is your digital marketing strategy, which I know is going to be ultimately your major piece of coursework for the marketing course. When Ms. Brooks comes, she will be teaching specific to those who are doing the strategic marketing plan, and she will touch on some things that will be relevant here, right? But in the flow of your document, this is where the marketing considerations would come after you have done your strategic assessment. Everybody clear on that?
Yeah.
Yes.
So Dr. Carl, just to be clear, the macro does the macro we do the pestle analysis. The micro we do the 5-quarter analysis. The resource audit is the internal.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
that's what I
Yes.
just need to confirm that. Okay, cool. Thank you.
And we will have worksheets on all of those, because whilst we talk it and it sounds quite doable and easy, sometimes we make some little key errors. Sometimes things that we identify in our resource audit really belong in our external assessment. So we will have the worksheets which will help us to map it out so that we are sure that we are putting everything in the right place. Okay? Right? And I'm saying that after you do the resource audit, you will do your pirate funnel, which would help you then to be sure of your weaknesses, where particular aspects and dimensions of your product or service are concerned. And having done that, then you are in a position to thoroughly map out your SWOT analysis. It means, therefore, class, that after you've gone through all of that analysis, your SWOT analysis should have no one bullet and two bullet, but you could possibly have 2 pages of a SWOT analysis, and that would be great, because what that will do for you is that then becomes the template or the basis upon which you craft strategy when you come lower down into your business plan. And same thing for those who have a feasibility to do. You would have a SWOT analysis in your document. So then that SWOT analysis, when you identify your action steps that you need for launching or what have you, that SWOT analysis you could use then to cost out, to say now what will be the cost of you to launch this business. That's the purpose of the feasibility, right? for those who will be doing a strategic marketing plan, I know that they use a cows there, but it's a little different because, of course, your focus is on developing a marketing strategy and costing out that marketing strategy so you will know what it would be to launch that or to implement that. So the point is, the SWOT becomes a very important strategic consideration for us that helps us to determine where we're going to from there. That it helps us to determine what will be the appropriate things to put down there for our piece. So we don't put down nothing lofty for our marketing or for our financials, but that everything we put from here on then is very much in consideration or cognizant of the fact, sorry, or cognizant of our realities as have been summarized in that SWOT analysis. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Any questions there? So far, so good. Making sense to everybody? Right. And I just have the little grid there that you could understand. And from there, of course, the financial analysis and then operational, which I have mentioned. When we come to this class, this too, when we do the class with these particular worksheets, I think the week after we would look at strategy and tactics because I want to show you, I will want to show you how you arrive at those strategy and tactics to from the SWOT. It may be that I will schedule this as a special class that we will do in the next semester because at a particular point in time, I will want you focused on doing your proposal, and therefore I would want that you would treat with how you actually go about doing this for next semester when you are actually into the document and building it in full. So when I look at the timelines and the university, which they're now contemplating what's going to happen next semester, by the time we come down to the end, I will be able to tell you with clarity whether I will shift that particular lecture then to next semester. And more I'm inclined to that because I don't want to overwhelm us, and I do want that we utilize our time well. We are working at a good pace so far, and that you will be able to deliver quality work. And it's not a case where you're feeling rushed and overwhelmed and, we start to have challenges on account of that, right? So this is here again to show you where it would fit in the document when you do the plan. But in terms of me guiding you as to how you would arrive at this, and tactics is just another term for action steps. We will have a special lecture on this. Okay, any questions, class? We were able to get through it. I'm so happy. Anything you're not sure about?
Actually, hi. I just wondered when Psyche asked a question about one analysis being the macro environment and the next one being the internal. Is that what she was asking? And the next one being the micro?
Yes, I was just clarifying which one was for which analysis earlier.
And which one was for which? Because I didn't put it together.
Well, for macro, we were doing the PESTLE analysis. So that's the Caribbean, the creative, and the global economy. Micro, Dr. Toll identified the immediate operating environment. So we were doing the 5-quarter analysis. And then for the internal, we were doing the resource audit. Which is the financial planning. And then you had the pirate funnel that would help to determine the value proposition.
Right.
Yeah. No problems.
Lovely. Very good. Well, the others are relatively quiet. Did you all understand that? Or is it because you're all not doing business? Who else doing business plan? Jeremy, you doing business plan also? I'm trying to remember everybody thing now. You doing marketing?
Yeah.
So is and Joshua doing what? Feasibility?
Feasibility, but there's how much double
It's got you thinking.
Yeah, because I know you when you looked at it the last time you said why not business?
I asked you that, didn't I ask you that?
And
Eh?
you tell me, wait for the presentation to see if I change my
But
mind.
yes, but in any event, when I review all your forms and your thing, I go no.
Yeah.
We will discuss it. We will discuss it together. I will give my comments. But yes, sometimes you can automatically see where the thing might fit. Janelle, you are what again? Which one you going at?
I am the
Where is your
feasibility.
right? Yes, right.
Wait,
Good.
Caribbean?
Sorry.
Is macro the Caribbean or micro?
Right.
Macro is the Caribbean.
So can be the Caribbean or global. But the
Macro,
point
yeah.
I was going to, someone had asked a question and I didn't get to go back to this. So I'm glad Janelle just raised that again. But let's just say that the business idea you have is pitched at the region. It's not operating in Trinidad and Tobago alone. Your macro would therefore then be what?
The globe.
The globe. That's right. The global creative economy. That's right.
Especially if we aiming to do things on a digital platform, we have access to a global economy.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right. Exactly. So you would appreciate my point even more that I made earlier when I said that depending on the focus of your business, your product or your service, that will determine what is your macro and what is your micro. And therefore what being your micro then constitutes your immediate environment because you would need to know when you apply in the five forces model what level of the environment you are targeting it at. You see? Any other questions or comments? Was that clear, class? Relatively?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Yes.
So what I'll do then, class, let me tidy this up and tomorrow you will look out. I will try not to overwhelm you, but I have a few things I want to put up there. They'll go up more than likely tomorrow night or Friday, depending on how long the guy takes to transfer all my things then from the old machine and load up the Word and all those things, documents. Um, but you will have some stuff to do on the weekend, and I will be looking forward to receiving. Next week is not a very tough weekend for me, so I would be happy to receive from you before the Thursday stuff that you're working on. We can do a back and forth so that when we come then next week Thursday, we could work on two other worksheets whilst we are in class, because that class, as I said, is a bridging class and it would fit nicely with doing some of that kind of work. Okay?
Yes, okay, mas.
Yeah.
Right. Jaron, you sound so engaged, like you are so enthused by all of what you are hearing here today. That's how your voice sounds.
Well, it was